Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Durham District School Board's Early Years podcast. My name is Amanda, and I'm an early childhood educator facilitator. And in today's episode, I am joined by Jackie, who is also an early childhood educator facilitator. And we had a great conversation with our two very special guests, Angela and Michelle. They both this past year taught 2 courses or 3 courses, I think, at Durham College, and they share their experiences about teaching at Durham College and also working in a full day kindergarten classroom. And they share a lot of wisdom and empowerment for early childhood educators. So this is a podcast episode where it's kind of just a conversation that we had with them and them sharing their experiences with us. So I hope you enjoy.
Just sort of how it came to be and kind of when were you guys doing the course and just sort of that information maybe.
Michelle, you want to go?
We have been actively engaged with the college for many years, even before going into the school board.
Right.
So what we pretty much do is in our off hours, we would see students who are in placement. So they're placed in daycare settings. So
Yep.
when we've completed our day, we'd have a couple students that we would monitor in the field, and that has evolved from that, and that opportunity presented itself.
So you're saying that they weren't in the schools then with you like initially, right? Like you guys were kind of doing this separate, or?
No, have before. Oh, go ahead, Angela.
Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. So what happened is we worked full time, and our day finished at 3. So we mentor students in the field that are taking the EC program.
Right.
So these are students who are going to daycares or in daycares, and daycare finished like at 6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're finishing work, we will go and visit these students, and then we'll see how they're doing in the field and how we can improve their learning and their engagement and things like that. So that's what we've done. And we've worked not just for Durham College, but we also do it for Centennial College.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that is how that opportunity came about. So we've been in the school board. I've been in the school board for over 8 years. Angela's been there since it started. But as you know, we're always looking to develop ourselves and to improve ourselves. And so as you know, our compensation, a lot of time we do part-time jobs in order to do that, but we like keeping it in our field. So we've kept close contact with the colleges that we graduated from, seeing when opportunities present themselves. So that's how we got our feet in the door, which led up to this opportunity.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
I like that you started with field placements and then you've moved into other roles as well and expanding that. That's amazing. Yeah.
So how did you find then, I guess what's the initial part, so with mentoring the students that were in childcare, did you find there were a lot of, I guess, like similarities, like things you could help with? Did you find that some things were a challenge because it is a bit of a, like it's a different environment, or was it kind of easy to sort of jump back and forth?
Well, I think it depends on the placement where the student is at. So we have students who are doing infants, toddlers, and preschoolers. So what happened is you find that the student that are doing the infant, they're having a more of a challenge within the placement. So with us being as mentor and getting into the placement, who have been in the field before and working in the field, we now then go in and guide them along with their elect document and with how does the learning happen, and giving them examples and suggestions and things that to move forward with placement. With the infant placement and toddlers, it's a lot different from the preschool, because now if they're in preschool, it'd be like in a full day kindergarten. If they're at a school where the school does like preschoolers, so it becomes more of a challenge for those students. Michelle, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I think also because we have been in childcare, this is all I've done. I've worked in the early years setting my total career since I was 16. So you see things change, you see things evolve. And because we've worked in childcare, we've supervised in childcare, we've moved to the
Yeah.
school setting. So we have quite a variety of background that we bring to that. So we can adapt based on the placement that the student is placed to give them that feedback and also keeping ourselves current in the field. So that's what we do, that's what we bring, and that's how we help our students, because we see it from both sides of the fence.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think having that, like, both those experiences are huge, right? Especially for supporting those coming into the field when there is a difference between the two, but a lot of those sort of pedagogies and underlying things that you need are kind of consistent. So that's huge.
Absolutely.
Another thing too, the students, they like to know that you've been there and you've had that experience. So when you can relate to them and says, I've been there before, I've been in an infant placement, I've been in a toddler placement, and you find that they're more receptive of your feedback that you're giving to them. Yeah.
And those personal experiences, right? It's for, anything kind of works like that, right? It's like, it's not just, it's hard when it's someone that you're like, okay, you've never been in here, so you can't really relate to the things I'm saying. It's more
Absolutely.
theory as opposed to being like, listen, I remember what that was like. I experienced that, and this is sort of this challenge I face. It definitely humanizes the things and makes those relationships stronger, which definitely will support that mentorship
Awesome.
moving forward. Absolutely.
And even when you're delivering your content, when we are teaching, you make those connections. Like this, you might have such and such a situation. Here is how I handled this situation, being in that field placement. Because when you're preparing them, I do curriculum at the college, curriculum development. And so when you're preparing them to go out there, you need to let them know this is what you can expect. This is what it may be like, because they may go to a variety of settings. And that's even moving on the other side from being the field placement supervisors to being the instructor in the classroom. So you're preparing them for that. You're bringing that personal touch and that experience to them as they prepare to go on their journey.
Awesome. Absolutely. That's exactly right.
And you're getting to see the whole spectrum of child development as well. So if you see what is happening in the infant rooms, you also know what they're going to be doing later on. So you get to see that whole all the stages of development and really be able to speak to all of that. So that's really amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So then from there, you guys, Amanda, I know we had questions, and I know we gave you guys questions. I don't even have the questions with me. I'm literally just like, I'm so interested. I'm just having a conversation with you guys. So don't mind me. But so then how did you move then to instructing the course? So again, you just kind of touched on how you're part of curriculum development with the college now. So talk about maybe like how did that come to be the next step, and sort of how do you then are you guys there weekly with them? Is it just sort of how just the setup of it, I guess, and what specifically you're looking at that you teach them?
For myself, I teach 2 courses. So does Michelle. I teach philosophies of early childhood education and field prep.
This is just reminding me of back when I did my degree. So that's why I'm like smiling. I just literally cleaned the closet over the break and saw all my old school stuff, and little philosophies of ECE was one of these little timelines I had. Anyway, sorry, that just triggered a memory for me.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. So when we were asked to teach the course, being that we've had the experience, we've been in the field, and the dean had sent out an email and basically, asked us if we would like to teach into the college. And Michelle and I, we decided, okay, why not? It's a way of enhancing our career and moving forward and being able to teach these students the course that we're actually practicing. And what better person than an early childhood educator to be teaching the course? So the philosophy course that I'm teaching is for 2nd-year students. And these students are getting ready to graduate. So they have one more placement before they go out into the field. I teach it twice a week with 3 hours long. Each class is 3 hours, and I had 2 classes. And basically what the course is, I look into different philosophers and different theories, both past and present. And we will dissect those philosophers, we'll dissect all the different theories, and then the students now at the end of the course will basically have to come up with their own philosophy, their own philosophy, and then they'll have to basically put that philosophy in talking about what kind of environment will the student be learning in, the role of the teacher and the curriculum planning and all the different guidance role, and implement that and use all the different philosophers and theories that we have talked about to embed it into that to support all of that. It's a very intense course, and it's a lot of reading and a lot of discussions, and they talked about their experience in placement because they've been in placement before. So it's a tough course. It's a tough course for the student, but at the end you try to make it very engaging, where the students are able to get really involved into it and make it fun for them. So, and they can practice these different theories and philosophers when they go out into the field out there.
You're triggering all kinds of memories from saying.
Oh my goodness.
Like, I remember that course. I remember writing that final assignment. I think I still have it somewhere typed out.
And you know what else? I think that, like, especially how nice is it for you guys to sort of, because I know even like I just said, I went through and I was cleaning up my stuff here in my house, organizing, and I had things from school, and I was like, remembering studying all this, but it just seems so far removed from me now because, of course, in your daily practice, you don't always go back and think about those philosophies and how, child development and our theories on it and our pedagogies have evolved. So how nice is it to kind of be so current with it, right? To have that, the background and where this research is all founded in, and then to be working in the field still where you are like having those, your practice sort of rooted in that. So that's, you know what I mean? It's a huge opportunity for you guys to sort of enhance what you do as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. And the thing about the whole thing is you've studied these philosophers in college, you've gone into the placement and you are practicing some of them, but when you're actually teaching it, you find a different perspective on the whole aspect of it. Like, wow, like, you know what? Now you find yourself more embedded into it and more practicing all, these different things that these philosophers talked about, right?
Absolutely. No, that's amazing. I'm just like, you know what I mean? Trying to connect it back. We had to do this like timeline thing. I remember looking at like Froebel and going back to like, Dewey and all these things and kind of timelining where they were and what their theories were. Anyways, it's it's amazing to think about.
It definitely refreshes your knowledge because now you're going into in depth, like you said, with everything that you've learned 100 years ago, and now you're teaching these new students, and for that you still have reflection on those theories and those practices, because for curriculum development too, the same thing with myself, like as you're teaching them step by step the activity plans, the documentation, the learning stories, analyzing learning, and you think of all the things that you're doing in the full day kindergarten classroom as well, and preparing them to do that, because we're constantly documenting our learning. How did our activity go? How did the children respond to that? What can we do differently next time? How are we capturing their learning? And all those different things you are teaching these students as they go into the field. So, it's a very important role, and it's a great role to play as I refresh my knowledge as well, getting in depth with the content of the course.
And who better to teach it than somebody who is still sort of in the field? I think that's that huge piece that you guys bring, because, it's not someone who's been removed from it and can't like put it. So you're relating to these students in that sense of, I assume you would be, in saying that, this is a theory. This is sort of things that like I see in practice where I see this come out, or where, you know what I mean? It's still relevant in that terms, right? So I think that's a huge thing that you bring to that table for these students that are going through it now, right?
Yeah,
because when I went to college, full day, I think it was like the first year that full day kindergarten came out. So being in college, they didn't really know what it was going to look like. They didn't really know what that experience was going to be. So that if you have that background and you're able to bring it into the courses, it makes it so much more meaningful for people who are going out into the field as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes when you're making that personal connection and you say, here is something that happened with child A, B, or C, of course, confidentiality reason, but you can just give them certain scenario and say, how would you deal with that? How would you, fix that problem? Or what would you do if you were in such a position? So it's always good being current and teaching the relevant courses at the same time,
Mhm.
so.
Absolutely.
So, Angela, you taught philosophy of early childhood education.
Yes.
Michelle, what course did you teach when you were
I
there?
am teaching curriculum development too, and that is for the students who getting ready to go in the place. So, and Angela and I also share a course which is field preparation, which is linked to curriculum development too. So everything that they're learning in curriculum, then they go off to implement that in the field. So you've seen it from both ends, and that ties in as well with us supervising in the fields for many years prior to that. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
you have that.
So in curriculum development, too, Michelle, would you be looking at, say, like how does learning happen in those documents, or is it
Yeah.
kind of, or is it more advanced than that, or sort of how does it?
Okay, so these are the students who getting ready to do their field placement. So they
Okay.
have activities that they're planning. So you're teaching them music, art, sensory, outdoor learning, all those different outdoor play. And now you're teaching them all that information in the classroom, all the theories, all the learning, how you put an activity plan together, how you document a learning story, how do you use your resources inside that, the elect, the developmental skills and domains. So you're doing all those different things. You're teaching them how to do that. You're giving them examples, and then you're sending them out to the field to practice those and do their assignments based on what you're teaching. So that's what we do, from
Awesome.
dramatic play, the whole
Yeah.
9 yards.
So are there field placements? So how does it work now with their field placements? Like, are they? Is it just, can it be kindergarten programs and childcare settings? Is it a certain amount of each, or is it just kind of what they decide, or how do those work?
Well, for the field placement, as a first year student, you only get infants and toddlers.
Okay.
And then as a second year student, then they'll move them into the school system with the preschoolers. So they can either go into a full day kindergarten or they're working with preschool, but they must complete an infant or toddler before. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah.
And that also aligns with the learning at the college, because they're learning child development in certain stages. So
Right.
then you do that based on that. So as they get more confident in their skills and they've had that experience in placement, then you sort of move them along with the challenges and the age group as well. And some of them might even have a specialized placement if they were really if they were a very confident student to demonstrate those skills and that they can um thrive in such a situation. Then you'll give them that experience, whether it's children with special needs or parenting center or different things like that. Then they'll have the opportunity to pursue that.
Yeah, I love that they're given the opportunity to go to multiple different age groups, just because
Yes,
you don't know what age group you love the most until you actually experience it, right?
Yeah.
So it's great that you
absolutely.
get those different experiences. And then again, you get to see that arch of development as well if you start.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then again, we have the early learning years, which is from birth to age 12. So then they have that experience across the age group so that they can learn and grow with that. So it's a great idea. Yeah.
Awesome. What challenges, I don't know if this is a question, but it might have been, are you finding that new students or graduates are having in the, or even vice versa, what sort of major successes? So are there things that sort of that, they're kind of like that you come up a lot maybe, or concerns that they have or struggles or?
Well, I find that with the in field preparation, because we're prepping those students to go out into the field and to be professionals into the field, and as Michelle said, to practice all the different things that they've learned in curriculum out there, I find one of their biggest challenge is the communication with the parents. Okay, they're having a really, really difficult time, in either they're too shy or they're not sure what they're able to say and what they're not able to say, um, or depending on how the parents drop the children off. Do they have the opportunities in the mornings or in the afternoon to talk to the parents? So that is one of their biggest challenge, because they got the material where they can do that learning story and they can do, so they're prepared for that. But when it comes to the communication part of it, it's a little bit more challenging for them in that aspect for those first year students. Looking at the second year students, when they're out into the field, because they've been through it already and they've had that communication, they're more confident in their knowledge and what they know. So that's where the philosophies of early childhood come in as a second year student, where they're getting that foundation so they can get out their own philosophy and go out there into the field and practice that. So it's a little bit different for both years, you know, first and second. That's what I find most with the students.
Yeah. I think some of the challenges that they have is sometimes we come into the students come into the field and it's not quite what they expected. A lot of times I think our profession is undervalued and people think, well, we just glorified babysitters, and we're not. We're professionals. So when they see the time management and the workload, a lot of them are scared away that they think that it's overwhelming. But then you look at it as like we set such an incredible foundation, like we setting these children up for the rest of their life. If you ask me, we have one of the most important jobs in the world, you know. And so a lot of them get overwhelmed when they see the depth of the studies that we have to do. And you do have the ones who might fall between the cracks because it's just too much, and you have the ones who rise to the level. But it's always rewarding when you see someone said, I don't think I can do this, and they rise above that, and you see that smile when they accomplish what they have to do. And that's where, like, even in our kindergarten classroom, that's when your role as an educator come in, and you sit back, and that's that intrinsic reward that you get when you see them succeed and reach their goals in doing what they have to do. Because we deal with the parents, your nurses, your doctors, your everything when you're interacting with these children, and when you're doing those courses, like learning how they develop, planning to nurture, and planning activities to, you know, to enhance their learning, and building and scaffolding, and then talking with the parents and putting plans out there. So I think it's just there's just so many things that we do that is so great and so rewarding. So for those who successfully complete their program, you know, like I said to them, don't ever remember your whys, and don't ever let that passion and that fire be extinguished, because your role is so vital. And I always smile when I'm teaching them, because I said I've done this all my life and I still get excited about it. You know, when someone comes and they say, Miss Joseph, guess what I found outside today? Like I just absolutely love it. And if after all these years, like, I wouldn't change my career for anything. And there are times when we get overwhelmed, and I always tell them, what is your happy place? Why did you get into that profession in the first place? And I always tell them that at the beginning of the course. And when you find those times are tough, that's when you go back and deal with that. We're going to have parents who might be challenging. How do we rise above that? We have children who, the ones we think, can't you be sick today? But they're never sick. But then we know why we're doing that, because those are the same children that turn around and say, oh, Miss Joseph, I missed you today. And you love that. And you take the good with the bad. And it's my profession, and that's why I got into the field, and I wouldn't change it for anything. And that's why I tell those students preparing to go, know why you're doing this and what you want to get out of it, and that's what's going to keep you going when times get tough. So
I love it. And I love, like, the advocates you guys are. We know that in this field that we are, you know, consistently, unfortunately, advocating for our roles and what we do. And I love the empowerment that you're giving, you know, your students, yourselves, the students in your classroom. You know, I'm sure the team you work with to, you know, remember those things, those whys, right? And what we do is so important. We have a world-renowned, you know, early years program in Ontario. We're really lucky that we have this. And, you know, I think it's amazing that you guys are at this sort of, you know, ground developmental level where you get to see both sides of it, and have that mentality towards it that you pass on to people coming into the field. It's so powerful, right? And I absolutely agree with you that that's really important, right? To kind of keep that going and be that advocate for what we're doing. Is, and I agree with you, it's literally, we're setting the foundation for success in, you know, not just in schooling and well-being, you know, looking at it the whole way up, right? So
absolutely. Yeah.
Again, I don't have any of the questions with me, so I don't know if there's more, Amanda.
Just to add to that, another good thing is that having the support of the people, like working in the college and having the support of the people that you work with, your coworkers, they're very, very supportive in what we're doing, because we were working full time and we had to go down to being a part-time staff in order to teach at the college. I must say, Michelle will back me on this one. Thank you to our principal, Joseph Ridley, and our VP, Elaine Warburton. They are being like so supportive with us doing that. They get excited and they'll come, how was class today? What, you was taught at school today, and just being there for us, it gives you that fire, it gives you that eager to want to go out there and, to bring back to those students and prepare them to go out there and be the future of these young children that are coming up, and just be there to support them.
Yeah.
So that's another great thing that's really supportive. And even our co-workers that we work with, like my co-worker that I work with, she's like, I really miss you when you're not here, but I'm happy for what you're doing. So it's like a twofold thing, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, she wants you there with them. Like, I get that too, right? But I
Yeah.
want you there with my partner, but you're doing something huge. It's like great for this, right? So
Exactly.
And I think working with our partners where we are, we have really great partners.
Yes.
And like we say, our administrative team, they said we wouldn't have it any other way. You have that opportunity. We're 100% behind you. And it was really good. Like, we were second guessing ourselves when the opportunity came up. And we went by to talk to our VP, and he said, "Of course, we're not going to have it." And then he was more excited than we were, And it's really good when you have that. And then once that was out of the way, then we sat down with our partners and say, "Well, how do you feel about this? This is what's come up." And then we tried to make sure that there was stability and balance for our classroom, because we wanted to keep that consistency for our children, even though we were away like a morning and a day. So it was a very short period of time, but we wanted to keep that consistent. So we wanted to make sure that it was the same person there, so that we had that for our children to thrive, and that making sure that the environment remained stable in a lot of ways. And in that way, we're still engaged in our planning for a classroom day to day, our contribution. And I don't know, we couldn't have done it without our administration team.
I know.
Our administrative team, and the support of our partners. So
that's amazing to hear, just how supportive they are and how much they understand the importance of advocating for early childhood education and uplifting early childhood educators. And that's really great to hear.
Yeah. And I think it's like, you're right. It's so important to have, it's just the communication, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, listen, this is what the situation is, what are your thoughts on it? And, obviously getting the positive feedback is, what more do you want? But you know what I mean? It's a great, that's what we're looking for. But just that open communication, I think sometimes we like forget about in these, is like, let's just talk about this, and work together as a team, regardless of the situation, right? So.
And I think that's where our professionalism come in. I have a great partner. She is the best, and husband probably says she has the best as well. But she's open. You can talk to her about work, about off work, and just that respect that we have for each other in our classroom, the expectations for our children, and what we bring to the table. And I have to say, I know a lot of people think they have the best, but I have to say, hands down, I've got the best when it comes to respect in every area as to what we do and what we bring. It's really, it makes your day worthwhile when you're going, not just for the children, but knowing that you have that support of your educating partner, and that you do everything together. You communicate on everything that you're going to do. You run each ideas by each other, and knowing that that's valued, I think it's invaluable. It's priceless. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember when I think the leave requests came in, and then it was like, oh, it's like the same school, what's happening at Delaire? And then when we spoke to the administrators, they're like, it's amazing, you should hear it. Like, it was so funny, right? Because it was like, because I think you guys were one of the first ones that have that, like the time frame of that leave, right? So we're like, how do we work through this? What do we do, right? So it was so funny. And then when we spoke to the administrators at Romeo Delaire, they were like, oh my gosh, guess what's happening? And we'll tell you the whole background. And it was like, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh wow, that's amazing. I didn't even know, you know what I mean? And I appreciate the time management it must have taken from you two personally, right? Because those are two huge commitments you're taking on side by side, right? Like huge
Absolutely.
commitments, for the college and then with the school as well. And so it's just finding that balance for yourselves and how to make that work. And of course, having the support of the team around you is, critical for that being successful. So that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, we're very thankful for them and for that opportunity.
Absolutely.
Just pretty much, it shows that the opportunities out there for early childhood educators are limitless, and and people are seeing that more and more, the value of the profession that we work within and what we bring to the table and what we do. And
And I think that's important too. Sorry, Michelle, to interrupt. I just, in terms of that leadership piece for early child educators. So I think that sometimes, especially in the school system we're in, that can get lost because it seems like, the teachers with the education background, they go to be VPs and principals. And sometimes it seems the appearance in that system is that the leadership piece for early child educators gets lost or forgotten. So I think that by, doing this and sort of, talking about it and empowering them, that there's, like you're saying, there's so many opportunities out there to sort of build that leadership among early child educators. And I like that is being talked about it and brought up in a system that I feel like doesn't always sort of emphasize it necessarily.
And I think as early child educators, sometimes a lot of people are intimidated because they figure my diploma is not to their degree. But you have to have that talk, and you have to be confident in your ability and what you bring to the table. And it's a partnership, and you have to say, what are your expectations of me, and what are your expectations for our children? And you have to get that out. It's like a marriage. It's like a partnership. And if you can't hold those feelings in because you what you're paid to do is being diminished, or you feel like you're the assistant, it's a partnership. And sometimes you have to have that uncomfortable to talk, to say, can we talk for a minute, how about such and such? And you have to reflect. It's an ongoing process, and we do that all the time. And we establish that from the beginning, that we're open, we're honest, and we're respectful of each other. And that's what we do. Everything, when our newsletter goes out, it's from Mrs. Joseph and Mrs. whoever, and that's always acknowledged. If something comes and it's addressed to one person, we let them know there's two educators in the classroom. So it's being confident in that role as well, and letting them know that we take our partnership seriously. So
absolutely. Yeah. No, it's awesome. That's great. And you're absolutely right about that. It's definitely taking those opportunities to, address it if there's any misconceptions. And when you're on the same page and have those same goals, then it's like, yeah, you know what, there's no difference here. You're talking to two professionals in this room that support children in child development, and that's what we do, right? And we bring unique strengths to the table. That's exactly right. And I think it's funny that, that's the piece that we bring as ECs. We have this huge piece of child development that teachers don't get. They don't have that piece. And you're for being confident and reminding yourself, this is the skill set I have that I'm bringing, right?
Oh yeah, just to let your partner know that, okay, you're the expert in the child development.
Absolutely.
And but just by letting them know that and talking about it, and I remember when I first started, because I've been at two different schools, and my second school when I went to, which is right now at Romeo, and right there, my teaching partner and I, we sat down and we talked about it. And she was more of the hands-on, the pencil, paper, type of thing. And we sat down and I'm like, you know what, that is not what full day kindergarten is about. We talked about it, and gradually she's getting better at it. And she'll look at me just like, you're the expert in documentation. Okay, what do you think about this? Can I use this piece of paper, or can I not use this piece of paper? Are we allowed to do that? And now she's looking at me for those feedback, for that, full day learning and that hands-on experience. And she'll be the first one to say, Angela is really good when it comes to that hands-on. She's the expert at documentation and, things like that. So just to have that understanding of what, as Michelle said, what your role is as an early childhood educator in the classroom, and talking with your partner, and establishing that. You find that not all ECs are on the same level. Okay. Anyone can be a teacher, anyone can be an educator, but it takes that special person to be an educator for young children, and that's something that us as ECEs have to realize it's not just going there and if your teaching partner will say, okay, can you go clean the table? You're just there to clean the table or being an assistant. You need to know, as Michelle said, to be confident in your knowledge and your experience and what you've taught in college in order to, be that partnership in the classroom.
Right. And I think, Angela, you touched on that great point there where you're saying that, you're the expert in child development. So you're the one who took these courses. We have, like, it's not the background that teachers have to have, or we have to have this background in child development, and we have it. And so it's sort of like, it's everything you're doing is sort of rooted in that knowledge, and your practice should be rooted in that knowledge. So as long as you have that and you know that, and you can sort of defend that,
Exactly.
you're the one who knows that this is how we know how children learn best. That's what we've learned in school. It's what we do. We know how children learn, how to support their development. And so you have that when you're in your practice in the classroom, how you can sort of leverage those conversations to be like, listen, this is sort of what we're engaged in, of course, the philosophy of early child education, the research behind how we got to this whole kindergarten program anyways, right? So it came to be through these sort of contexts, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think it's so important that we allow people who are like yourselves, who are in positions of authority, being from working from the college, and giving you a voice to be able to talk about this, and saying early childhood educators have a voice to empower them to know that they can stand up for their beliefs in early childhood education. I think that's a really important part and a really vital role that we have to really start pushing the early childhood educator leaders that are amongst us, and showing what we're capable of.
And even to Amanda, even understanding your document, know those document that is put forward for us. How does learning happen? The elect document. If you're not familiar with that document and you don't know that document, you are going to be lost. And you're not going to be able to say, I know child development. I know what. So you got to know the document and practice what's in that document. Know about the pedagogical documentation. And that is something that in philosophy that I really and truly stressed with my students, that you got to know your document. You got to understand the pedagogy documentation and what it's all about. I've given them like case studies, and I've given those case studies for them to dissect with questions and things for them to be able to know how to teach those children and how to program for those children. So knowing the document is a huge piece of it. It's not just not looking at it. You got to know the inside of it.
Angela, I remember when, the kindergarten program, the revised one, came out in 2016. And I was working in partnership with the teacher facilitators to help, unpack it. And of course, we had maybe a half-day session. It was the shortest amount of time that we got with it. And I remember talking about the front matter in the document, and I remember educators being like, oh, there's so many pages in the beginning, the front matter is huge, like there's so much in there to read. It's 100 and something pages, right, of that. But exactly, that is what that is. That is the pedagogies around child development. That's how we got that is more important than any overall expectation you're going to read in there. That's where this comes from. It's based on that. So if you're not taking the time to understand and really get to unpack that piece there, you're missing a big part of the program. And I think a lot of teachers coming in and stuff like that, or educators coming in, I think a teacher brain especially is sort of trained to be like, where are the expectations and around that, where that front matter, that piece about pedagogies is so important. And if you truly understand that, then your practice will shift very much so, right, to support that.
Okay. Awesome. So
again, I'm like just talking because I think it's so interesting, you guys. Like, oh yeah. How do you guys? How's the mentorship piece? I guess that's my other question that I have, working with new students. But I think it's sometimes, and I think we can say it as educators in any sort of way. It's hard to mentor, to be a mentor with someone, because you don't want to come off as, you're not the one, I'm not the keeper of knowledge to give to you. Like, that's not necessarily this. It's sort of like helping you grow your practice in terms of like we said, being reflective. So how do you sort of work with these new students coming into the field of early child education to help them sort of continue to be reflective and support that through mentorship?
Well, we have reflection pieces after every class. So we have reflection pieces where they would reflect on what we've done and see how that applies. We also have discussions that we do from time to time. And we also have that inclusive setting where, you know, we all sit and we talk and respect each other's opinion, ideas, and what's happening. And I'm not afraid to tell them if there's something that they had a question that I couldn't answer that I'm learning as well, and I will get back with you on that. But it's just pretty much letting them know that we're at the starting point, and it's after 30 something years in the field, I am still learning and I am still growing. So, you know, it's keeping that.
And one of the things that we've done in field is once they go out there and they're in field, because the course is still going throughout while they're in field, they will come across different conflicts or different issues that they're having, and they'll bring it back to the classroom. So what we'll do, we'll sit down as a group, and sometimes you have a lesson planned, but then you're not able to complete that lesson in total details. You have to revisit the next week to cover that because they have all these questions and all of these concerns. So we sit down as a class and just letting the students know that the classroom is a safe place. It's a place where, not to use children's name, but it's a place where they can discuss what's happening in placement, and they, you know, get everyone's ideas, because everyone has a voice. Okay, so you're having that diversity. Everyone have their different perspective of things. So you're bringing that diversity into your classroom and having that discussion and see how how they can problem solve and what to give them strategies, not to actually solve it for them, but give them different strategies of how they can solve it and different ways that they can maybe try something else if that doesn't work. Some students are just maybe afraid of approaching their supervising teachers, and talking to them. So we give them, that ways of how they can talk to them. Along with that, they also have their field supervisors, because we're in the classroom, so they have their mentor supervisors also that mentor them, because we're teaching now in the room, so we don't do that mentoring for them. But because we have had the experience, we know what to expect and we know what to tell them and things like that. And we'll refer them back to those. So they have different channels that they can go to get those answers. Yeah.
That's awesome. You know what? And you know what? It's those hardships. I think it's a natural thing to be like, I don't want to have conflict. I don't want to have hardships. You want things, everyone wants things to be sort of this smooth sailing. But, when you're reflective on it, you're like, there's no hardship that I've gone through where I haven't had some movement, some huge learning experiences that happen in those. And I like that what you're saying is sort of giving them, that piece of like, this is going to happen. You're going to have issues that, maybe come with a supervisor, with a, colleague, with a student, whatever the case is, and sort of guide them to work through those strategies on their own. So like you're saying, I might not have all the answers, but then be reflective on it. What could you have done differently? How could you, what are the perspectives might you not be considering? So things like that, just to support that, because we're definitely in a field, as we all know, that is, ever evolving, right? And it's that stance of being a lifelong learner that I think helps moves us forward, that growth mindset that we encourage in children and that we're like, need to encourage in ourselves as adults. So I love what you're saying there with that. It's huge.
Yeah, being reflective on your own practices can sometimes start to be hard when you're in the classroom, when you're day in and day out with the same students and you're going through the same motions every day. Being reflective can sometimes be a little bit harder, and just coming back to that we're constantly growing, we're constantly learning along with the children, that we have to keep being mindful that we're reflecting on our practices. I think that's a really important message to be sending out.
And it lets you to rethink and revisit the things that you yourself are doing in the classroom, right? It's such a great refresher, in all the things that you're doing. And that's one of the things that I'll tell my students. I said, you know what, as an adult, you have challenges, okay? And you're trying to find different ways to solve those challenges. And that's what we're here for, to help you to do. But then when you go into the field and you're teaching, those children have challenges,
Mhm.
and you now have to give those children the strategies and the time, to problem solve. And that problem solving piece becomes a really big piece. So you
Mhm.
can't just shy away from it. You just need the strategies in order to work through it.
Mhm.
So, that is something that we really stress with the students.
Mhm. And I
And
think
that is,
sorry, go Michelle. Yeah.
and just to build on what Angela said, and that
Mhm.
comes with practice.
Absolutely.
Think about our first time in as workers, as educators in the field when we first started to where, so we've all walked the walk and talked the talk, but we
Mhm.
know that it gets better with practice,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
going through the different experiences. So
Absolutely. I remember, again, you're triggering memories, me being in like my first placements in childcare. I remember planning this lesson, activity to do with the kids. And of course it didn't go well. It was a time management thing. I'm like, great, we're going to make this, color this thing, cut out a puzzle, and we'll have a puzzle. Like, of course that took with, toddlers days to do. It was not a simple, 10 minute.
yeah.
And, I remember being so like hard on myself at that time because I'm like, I failed, I didn't do good. It was my first activity I was doing, and it honestly sticks with me. And of course, in hindsight, it's like that's a daily occurrence right now with me with the kids. Oh, that didn't go the way planned. It's okay, no big deal. We'll figure it out. And role modeling that for the students. But you're right, it comes with time and with practice, right? Like,
Oh
And
yeah,
just
and
being
that's
flexible too, right? That flexibility of being able to change and follow the interest of those children, right?
responsive teaching, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell my students there's no such thing as failure if they're doing an activity. So if it went really well, what else can I do to enhance that activity? How
Absolutely.
can I extend it? And if it didn't go very well, then it's a learning lesson. What could I have done differently next time? So
Yeah.
it's learning. Whether it went
That
thumbs
growth
up or
mindset.
thumbs down, it's always
Yep.
a learning experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Did we cover everything we wanted to cover, Amanda? More or less?
Yeah, I keep going back and forth just to make sure.
I know
But
we planned some stuff,
just
but I've gone off the grid because I'm just like, okay, great, live here. So I don't know.
it's just fantastic to hear the different perspectives of being in the classroom and then coming into being the an EC facilitator, and then speaking with you about going to the college and teaching courses and also being in the classroom,
yeah.
and just hearing from all those different perspectives. And it's just great to just hear about it. I love it.
I think it's also that reminder that our field is so diverse in what we
Yes.
do, right? And what I think back to, I did a placement when I was in school at the Science Center, and I worked there with kids 0 to 6, and it had like a sign, and it was just, but I'm like, wow, like it's just like the spectrum when you think about the diversity of the field of early childhood education and sort of how it's ever evolving, and the important work we do regardless of the setting we're in or the environment we're in, and how it's that those common goals that you guys are teaching to these students coming in of how do we support children, and that's our number one goal always, right? So
Absolutely.
And just how flexible early childhood educators can be, right? From working at a science center to being in full day kindergarten to working with infants to teaching full adults in college. Like
Oh yeah.
the flexibility and the range that early childhood educators have, where sometimes they're just pigeonholed into like I'm putting air quotes up, but like babysitters,
Oh
where
yeah.
we have so much more to offer. And we just need to be advocates for ourselves and really have confidence in our own abilities. It's really amazing to see the
Yeah.
range.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I tell my students as well, and I might have said that before, is that it has to be intrinsic because, like I said, in a lot of areas, our profession is so undervalued that you have to have a love and a desire and a passion for what you do, to keep going. Because a lot of us, as you know, we have to do a second job sometimes
Yeah.
on our end. So it's because we love what we do. It's we say it's not about the money, like we still have to live, but
Yep.
you have to have a passion,
Yeah.
to keep going, and like the wide range of fields that we can work in, and all equally important. So